I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're 4 years old, you're tiny, the world is just huge,
Hmm.
and you're doing something you're not supposed to. You've snuck into your parents' bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
you've managed to get the closet door open, and you're standing in there trying to walk in your mother's high heels, you know? You're surrounded by the smell of her perfume and all her dresses. It's like a little secret world, just a moment of pure, innocent play.
But then you hear the door.
But then you hear the door click.
It's the classic childhood nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're small, you're hiding somewhere you shouldn't be, and the sanctity of your home it's just violated. But in this case, it's not some monster.
Yeah.
It's not a burglar. It's your parents. And then somehow even worse, it's your sister.
Exactly. So you shrink back deeper into the closet, and you're peering through that little crack in the door. And what you see, it's not a fight, it's not an argument. You see your older sister, Elaine, just walk into the room, and she's holding a meat cleaver. You watch, totally frozen, as she murders your parents while they're in an intimate moment. And then, as if that isn't enough to just completely shatter a child's mind, you watch her get up on a chair, loop an electrical cord over the light fixture, and hang herself.
And that right there is where the true horror of what we're talking about today really begins. It's not just the violence itself, which is, I mean, it's extreme. It's what happens next.
The aftermath.
The aftermath. Because this little boy, he's eventually found, but he's not taken to a hospital. There's no grief counseling. He's taken to a convent. And the nuns, these people who are supposed to be symbols of comfort, they don't offer it. They tell this 4-year-old child that his sister was evil.
Evil, and that she's sinned.
Right, so they're planting this seed in his mind that sin has to be punished. And that evil is, well, that it's in the blood. It's something that just lurks inside you, waiting.
That is the absolutely chilling prologue to the book we're covering today. We're doing a deep dive into Punish the Sinners by John Saul. Now, you know, we usually tackle nonfiction, scientific papers, but this book, it's a unique opportunity. It's a psychological thriller, sure, but it reads like a case study.
Oh, absolutely. It's a case study in religious repression and in mass hysteria.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating source because it's all about the collision of these two just completely different worldviews. On one hand, you have modern psychology, the effort to understand the mind, you know, to find reasons for behavior, to treat trauma.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have this archaic, almost inquisitorial version of Catholicism that isn't about understanding the mind, it's about purging the soul. And the whole thing takes place in a town that just feels like a tinderbox.
So let's reluctantly pack our bags and head to Neilsville, because the setting in this story is so much more than a backdrop. It feels like another character.
It really does.
We're in the eastern Washington desert. Now, when I think of Washington, I think rain, Seattle, you know, green everywhere.
That's the classic image, yeah. But eastern Washington is a different beast entirely. It's high desert. The book describes the heat as a physical thing, like a weight on you.
Oppressive.
So oppressive. It's arid, it's baking. The source material says the town shimmers in the heat like a dying thing writhing in agony. It creates this incredible atmosphere of tension from the very first page.
It's that thing where the weather reflects the mood, you know. If it's 100 degrees out and there's no relief, people are they're on edge.
Of course. Heat makes people more aggressive. That's a known psychological fact. And the town itself reflects that feeling. The buildings are described as being huddled together.
Like they're scared.
Exactly. Either they're scared of the huge empty landscape around them, or maybe they're scared of each other. It's isolated, it's insular, and it is deeply, deeply suspicious of outsiders. And into this pressure cooker walks our protagonist, Peter Balsam.
Let's talk about Peter, because he's a pretty complicated guy, right? He's not just some hero riding into town. He's got his own stuff going on.
Oh, a lot of stuff. No, Peter is a fascinating case. He's a man who is sort of caught between these two worlds we mentioned. He's a former seminarian.
He was training to be a priest.
He was, yeah. So he knows that world from the inside out.
Yeah.
But he left. He walked away from it to teach Latin and psychology. So he's literally the bridge between that old world of faith and this new world of science.
And he's arriving with a suitcase full of personal baggage. His wife just left him for another man. He feels like his whole life has just been one mistake after another. He's vulnerable.
He's very vulnerable.
But here's the real kicker, and this brings us all the way back to that terrifying opening. Peter has no memory of his life before he was 4 years old.
And that is the crucial piece of the puzzle. He remembers growing up in the convent. He remembers the nuns. But before that, nothing. Just a black hole where his childhood should be. In psychology, we'd call that dissociative amnesia, meaning a trauma so profound that his mind literally built a wall around it to protect him. He is walking around with a locked room inside his own head.
So Peter gets to Neilsville, hired by an old friend from college, and he feels it immediately. That pervasive sense of evil, not just, this town is creepy.
No, it's
right?
capital evil. He tries to rationalize it away. He's a man of science now, but there's just something in the air. The town is basically screaming at him to get back on the train and leave.
And the person who invited him there, his old friend, is no help at all. We have to talk about Monsignor Vernon.
Ah, yes, the Monsignor.
Because Peter remembers him as Pete Vernon, just a college buddy, someone you'd, argue about theology with over a cheap beer. But the man who meets him at the station, he is not Pete anymore.
Not at all. He's changed drastically. It's a classic foil to Peter, where Peter's questioning and sort of adrift. Monsignor Vernon is absolute. He's authoritarian, brooding. He's obsessed with formality. He insists on the title Monsignor.
Never Pete.
Never. He's basically shed his old personality for the institution. And it's incredibly jarring for Peter.
And there's this really creepy dynamic where Vernon is the one who hired Peter. He supposedly needs his help, but from moment one, he's just warning him, it's not great to have you, it's watch yourself. He's constantly going on about heresy and modern thinking. It's like inviting someone over for dinner and then yelling at them for using the wrong fork.
It is all about control. That's Vernon's entire character in a nutshell. He has to control the town, the school, and most importantly, the minds of the students. He doesn't see psychology as a science. He sees it as a mortal threat to their souls. Psychology asks why.
And Vernon demands obey.
Precisely. And that fundamental conflict is just bound to explode, and it does, right there in the classroom.
Let's go into that classroom because that's really the battlefield here, isn't it? It's where this whole war for the kids' minds plays out. Peter's teaching Latin, which the Monsignor loves. It's traditional. It's the language of the church.
The old world.
But he's also teaching psychology, which is the problem. But the room itself, it's strange.
It is. I mean, in a Catholic school, you expect a crucifix, a statue of Mary, maybe the patron saint of the school. In this case, that was St. Francis Xavier.
Who was he?
A missionary, known as a fairly jovial figure, someone who went out into the world to spread the faith. But when Peter gets to his classroom, that statue is gone. In its place is a statue of St. Peter Martyr.
Okay, I had to look this guy up, and he is not a jovial figure.
Not even close. St. Peter Martyr was a 13th century Dominican. He was an inquisitor.
An inquisitor.
His entire job, his fame, was based on hunting down heretics in Italy. He was so zealous that he was eventually assassinated by the very people he was persecuting.
So putting his statue in a psychology classroom.
It's a message. It's a direct, aggressive message from Monsignor Vernon. It says, I am watching you, and I am hunting for any error in your thinking. It's a watcher. It's a threat.
So, under the stone gaze of this inquisitor, Peter tries to get these kids to think for themselves. He starts with a few classic psych experiments. The first one is basically a Rorschach test. He shows them an image called vanity. It's an optical illusion.
Right, a standard perception test.
Yeah.
The image is ambiguous. Look one way, it's a woman at her vanity table looking in a mirror. But if you shift your focus, the negative space forms a giant human skull.
And normally you get what, like a 50-50 split? Some people see the woman, some see the skull.
Exactly. Or people see one and then they can see the other. In a normal test group, you'd expect a mix. But in Neilsville, the result is deeply disturbing. 29 out of the 30 students see the skull first.
They see death.
Instantly. They see death, they see the end, they don't see life, they don't see vanity, they don't see the woman. It's a huge piece of data for Peter. It tells him these kids have been conditioned, their brains are literally wired to look for the macabre, for sin, for the darkness in everything.
Except for one kid. One student sees the woman, Marilyn Crane.
The outlier. And ironically, because Marilyn sees the normal image, she becomes the abnormal one in the context of Neilsville. It just shows how deep the conditioning runs. You know, if you're the only sane person in an insane asylum, you're the one who looks crazy.
We are definitely going to talk more about Marilyn. Her story is just, it's heartbreaking. But first, the second experiment. This is the one that really sets off the chain reaction. Peter brings in a Skinner box.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Behaviorism 101. You've got a rat in a box, you condition it. A light comes on. The rat presses a lever. It gets a food pellet. Positive reinforcement. The rat learns the rules of its universe.
Simple enough.
But then Peter introduces frustration.
He puts up a barrier.
Yep. A little glass wall. The rat can still see the food, it can smell the food, it knows the reward is there, but it is physically impossible to get to it. The rules have been broken.
And the rat just loses it. It starts throwing itself against the glass. It gets frantic, neurotic, and then eventually it just gives up. It cowers in the corner. Peter's using this as a metaphor for human frustration.
Right. But he makes one little offhand comment. A student, Judy Nelson, asks him what he would do if he were the rat.
And he says what any of us would say. I'd kill myself trying to get out.
I'd kill myself trying. A figure of speech, we say it all the time. This project is killing me. I'd kill for a coffee. It doesn't mean anything literal.
But not in Neilsville.
In Neilsville, words are weapons, and suicide is a mortal sin. Monsignor Vernon grabs onto that one phrase and twists it. He claims Peter wasn't using a metaphor. He claims Peter was literally teaching the children that suicide is a logical response to frustration.
It's such a deliberate, malicious misreading of the situation.
But it works. Because of what happens next to that very student, Judy Nelson. This really gets us into the social dynamics of the school. You have the sinners and you have the outcasts.
Let's start with Judy, the sinner.
Judy Nelson is your classic rebellious teen. She's popular, pretty, a bit manipulative, but she's being absolutely suffocated by her mother, Inez, who is one of the Monsignor's biggest supporters.
And the whole conflict starts over a dress.
A black dress. A little too sexy, a little too grown-up for her mother's taste. This is standard teenage rebellion stuff. Judy buys it anyway, hides it at a friend's house. Everyone's been there. But then it takes a really dark turn. Judy is found in the girls' locker room. She's cut her wrists.
Oh, man.
But again, the details in the source material are very specific. The cuts are shallow, they're superficial, and she called the police herself right after she did it. She made sure she would be found.
So it wasn't a serious attempt.
In a clinical sense, it presents much more as what we'd call a parasuicidal gesture, a cry for help, or maybe even a manipulative act to punish her mother. A very dramatic performance of distress.
But of course, the town doesn't see a cry for help. They don't see a girl who's struggling.
No. They see a mortal sin. The narrative isn't Judy is in pain, it's Judy sinned against God. And Monsignor Vernon draws a perfectly straight line from Peter's rat lecture
From I'd kill myself trying
to Judy's actions. He completely ignores the oppressive mother, the fight over the dress, all the real context. He blames the new psychology teacher for planting the idea in her head.
It's the perfect scapegoat. Blame the outsider so you don't have to look at the sickness already in your own house.
Exactly.
But if Judy is the sinner, then Marilyn Crane. She's the victim, the outcast. We said she was the only one who didn't see the skull. The book describes her as the ugly duckling. She's clumsy, awkward, unpopular, and she's just painfully pious.
Marilyn is the real tragedy here. She's constantly praying to the sorrowful mother. The church is her only refuge because school is just a daily exercise in torture for her.
Yeah.
And the bullying she goes through is not just kids being mean, it's psychological warfare.
It is absolutely brutal. There's this one scene where she opens her locker, and inside, someone has put one of the dissected frogs from biology class and pinned this dead frog as a little note. It says, "Jesus loves you, but no one else does."
Just think about that. The cruelty. It uses the language of comfort, Jesus loves you, to twist the knife, to tell her that she is so unlovable, so monstrous, that only a divine being could stand her. She's cut off from humanity.
And then there's a defaced crucifix hung in her locker. But the worst of it, the absolute worst, is the party prank.
This is a pivotal moment.
Mm-hmm.
For Marilyn and for Peter, Marilyn gets a phone call from Karen Morton. Karen's one of the popular girls, Judy's best friend, and she invites Marilyn to a come-as-you-are party.
I vaguely remember these. The idea is you have to show up exactly as you are when you get the call, right? No changing.
That's the idea. And Marilyn is at home in her bathrobe. Her hair's in big rollers. She has cold cream all over her face. She's at her most vulnerable. And she knows it's a bad idea. She doesn't want to go.
But her mom pushes her.
Her mom is so desperate for her to fit in. She thinks, finally, they're including her. You have to go, Marilyn. This is your chance.
So she goes. She shows up at this party looking, ridiculous. And she rings the doorbell. And the door opens.
Yeah.
And everyone else is dressed up.
It was a lie. It was never a come-as-you-are party. It was a, let's get Marilyn here so we can all laugh their party.
And they do. They laugh. And it just breaks her. She runs out of the house. And she's just wandering the dark streets of this town in her bathrobe, crying her eyes out.
It's a complete nightmare. And who should find her?
Peter Balsam.
And this is where we see the kind of man Peter really is. He doesn't judge her. He doesn't give her a lecture. He pulls over. He gets her in the car. He buys her a Coke. And he tells her a story about a time he was humiliated in the seminary.
It's a fake story, isn't it?
It's a total lie. He makes it up on the spot. But it's a kind lie. He invents this moment of his own humiliation just to build a bridge to her, to make her feel less alone. He offers her empathy. Compare that to the Monsignor who would have told her to offer her suffering up as penance. Peter offers her a human connection.
Let's talk about Karen Morton for a second. The girl who made the phone call. She's Judy's best friend. And after Judy's incident, Karen almost steps into her shoes. She even starts wearing that forbidden black dress.
It's like the town needs a designated sinner. And with Judy gone, Karen takes the role. And for Karen, the sin is sexuality. She's just doing normal teenage things, heavy petting with her boyfriend, Jim Mulvey. But in Neilsville, that's a 5-alarm fire.
The confession scene with her it's terrifying. She goes to confession with Monsignor Vernon, and she admits to lust. And his reaction is not one of a gentle guide.
No, it's one of an interrogator. He speaks to her with this hushed, intense fury. He tells her the devil is walking the halls of their school. He takes her normal, biological adolescent urges and turns them into this cosmic battle for her soul. He is psychologically abusing her under the cover of a sacrament.
And that intensity from him seems to be ramping up, which brings us to the rectory incident. This is where Peter realizes that Vernon isn't just a zealot, he's genuinely unhinged.
This is where the mask fully comes off. Peter goes to the rectory to try and talk to Vernon about Judy, to defend himself.
Yeah.
He finds the door to Vernon's study is slightly open.
And it's the middle of a desert summer. It's boiling hot. But inside that room, Vernon has a fire roaring in the fireplace. The room is like a furnace.
And in the middle of this superheated room is Monsignor Vernon. He's half naked, he's drenched in sweat, and he's whipping himself with a small scourge.
Whoa!
Flagellation, a medieval practice of self-punishment, beating the sin out of the flesh. It's a shocking medieval image. But what's even more shocking for Peter is how Vernon reacts to being discovered.
He doesn't panic.
Not at all. He just calmly puts his shirt on, and his demeanor changes instantly. He's composed, and he starts warning Peter again, talking about the need to punish the sinners.
So Peter realizes he is dealing with a true fanatic. This is when he and Margot, his love interest and only ally in town, start doing their own investigation.
Right. And they start with the church itself. They notice the statues. We talked about St. Peter Martyr in the classroom.
The Inquisitor.
But then they realize all the statues are like that. They aren't the usual saints you'd find. They're all 13th and 14th century Dominicans.
Specifically Dominicans who were part of the Inquisition.
Exactly. For those who aren't familiar, the Inquisition was basically the internal affairs department of the medieval church, tasked with rooting out heresy. And they used trials, torture, and execution, often by burning at the stake to do it.
And Monsignor Vernon has filled his church with statues of these guys.
They're his heroes. It's a complete window into his mindset. He doesn't see Neilsville as a parish. He sees it as a hotbed of heresy that needs to be purged.
And there's one statue they can't even identify at first. St. Aserinus.
Right. They look him up, and he's not in any of the standard books of saints. He's so obscure. It means Vernon is digging into the darkest, most forgotten corners of church history to find his role models. This isn't just conservatism. This is a man actively trying to reenact the Inquisition in the modern world.
At this point, any sane person would get in their car and drive away as fast as they could. And Peter wants to. He's literally packed his bags. He is done with this town.
But then Margot finds something. She's been looking through a book of saints, and she decides to look up Peter's namesake.
St. Peter Balsam.
St. Peter Balsam. And she finds him. He was an early Christian martyr, persecuted for his faith. But the key line in his story, the one that changes everything for Peter, is that he didn't run away. When the soldiers came for him, he stood his ground. He faced his fate.
And that's the turning point for him. He looks at that line. He thinks about these kids. He thinks about Marilyn being bullied and Judy cutting herself and Karen being terrified of her own body. And he realizes he can't leave them. He has to stay.
It's a deeply heroic moment. He decides to become the counterforce. It's psychology versus the Inquisition, right there in Neilsville.
Yeah.
But in a horror novel, it's also a terrifying choice, because we know what happens to martyrs.
They don't usually get a happy ending.
No. St. Peter Balsam didn't run away, and they killed him.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, we really have to look at the bigger picture here. This isn't just a scary story about a creepy priest.
Not at all. It's a clash of worldviews. On one side, you have psychology, which stands for understanding, for questioning, for freedom. It sees the mind as something complex that needs to be cared for.
And the other side.
The other side is Vernon's Inquisition, which stands for repression, punishment, and absolute unquestioning obedience. Vernon genuinely believes that fear is a holy tool, that by terrorizing these children, he is saving their immortal souls. Peter believes that by understanding them, he's saving their lives right here on Earth.
It's also a fascinating look at mass hysteria, how an entire town can be conditioned, just like that poor rat in the Skinner box. If you control the information, if you apply enough pressure, if you make an example of the outliers like Marilyn, everyone else will fall in line.
The conditioned response is for the whole town. They see the skull in the picture because that's what they've been trained to look for. They fear the Monsignor because he has demonstrated his power. It is social control through terror.
I want to leave you with one last thing to think about. A final provocative thought. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, back to the prologue.
The little boy in the closet.
The little boy who saw his sister commit a murder-suicide. The boy who was taken to a convent, told his family was evil, and then he just disappears from the story.
And then you have our hero, Peter Balsam, a man who has no memory of his life before the age of 4, a man who was raised by nuns, a man who feels this strange, humming evil the second he steps foot in Neilsville.
So, is Peter Balsam the boy from the prologue? I mean, the evidence seems to be pointing that way. The age fits, the background fits, the amnesia fits. But if he is, did he come back here by accident? Or was he drawn back?
And the more chilling question is, if he is that boy, is he the hero who's going to break this cycle of violence? Or is he just another traumatized piece in the machine? Can you ever really escape something like that? Or are you destined to repeat it?
In a town so obsessed with sin, who is the most dangerous person? Is it the rebellious girl with the shallow cuts on her wrists? Is it the teacher trying to get you to think for yourself?
Or is it the man in the rectory whipping himself in a blazing hot room who claims he speaks for God?
I think we all know the answer. But in Neilsville, knowing the answer might be the most dangerous thing of all.
That's it for this deep dive into Punish the Sinners. Sleep well tonight, if you can.
And maybe check your statues.
See you next time.